Now let's have a look at Wax. And Wax 2 is freeware, and you can download it from www.debugmode.com. Here we have the settings window, and it's important to set the frame width and height and the frame rate to what they're supposed to be, and then you load in the sequences that you're going to use. We have the animated sequence and a blue background. And as you can see, the sequences are now shown in the media pool on the left side. Now then, I drag and drop the animation to the first track, since that's supposed to be the foreground, and the blue background BMP that goes to the second track behind the animation track, and stretch it to the same length. There you go. And I click the plugins tab and I select Chroma Key and drag that onto the video track. Oops, now that the blue border is invisible, it shows that I forgot to resize the blue BMP to the same size as the video, but that's no problem. Just right click on the track and select Stretch to Fill. There you go. Now the blue background fills out the whole area behind the foreground. But anyways, first I gotta set the key color, and Wax has a color picker, so I can pick a particular color tone from the image. I'm gonna start with dark areas because those are the most difficult, so I wanna get rid of those first. And when I increase the tolerance, you can see how it takes away large areas of the background, but I'm being careful not to take off too much. You can see how it starts to take off some color in the eyes, for example. If I increase the tolerance too much. So I'm going to decrease it again to find a point where I take off just as much as possible, but without removing any of the dark areas that's supposed to be there. This is about as much as I get in the first turn, so I just click the render button to make an output video. And as you can see, that's gonna take a while. But anyways, that's why when you make the recording of the raw blue screen footage, you try to avoid shadows and generally try to make the blue background as uniformly and bright blue as anyhow possible. The more uniformly bright blue and the less shadows there are on the raw blue screen footage, the easier it will be and the less time it will take later on to filter away. Okay, now it's done rendering the first turn. Here it is. And I'm gonna rename that to number 1 there, and then back to Wax. I delete the original foreground because now I'm gonna load the output file that I just rendered and use that instead. There it is, render 1. And drag that to the new foreground, the plugins tab, and select Chroma Key again just like before, and continue where I left off by picking a color from one of the dark areas that I didn't get the last time around. And again, I'm being careful not to remove any of the dark areas inside, for example the eyes and the ears. I also try to spool through the video to make sure there aren't any problems other places. Okay, there. So this time I got a little bit more and I render it like that. And after it's done rendering, I go through exactly the same procedure again. I delete the previous foreground, rename the output file to number 2, and load that to be the new foreground to work on. And so on and so on. Going through this procedure a number of times. Each time I get rid of a bit more of the background, and each time I'm being careful not to remove too much. But obviously you don't need to see the whole process, so let's get through the rest of this step quickly. Flipping through the successive stages of the process, you can see how the whole blue screen background bit by bit is replaced by the single tone of bright blue. There you go, that's the last render. The whole background is one tone of bright blue. And I renamed that to Final. Actually, it turned out later that I had to render it again. But you get the idea. So let's just pretend for the sake of ease that it's the final render. And let's see what it looks like. With a single tone bright blue background like this, it'll be a very manageable video layer that'll be easy to use and easy to apply onto another background. At this point, there was still a little bit of dark lines along the edges of the image frame and stuff that appeared into the sides of the image occasionally that I also removed. So in the following part, that will have been cleaned up too. That's trivial work, but it would take too long to show, and besides, it's a bit outside the scope of this tutorial.